And that is John Borman.
Wow.
Yes. It's lovely, isn't it?
He looks like quite a character. Got a real twinkle in his eye.
He has, hasn't he?
And I guess it looks like everyone was like lining up to have their official portrait, perhaps before they went off to fight.
Have you ever seen this photo?
No. Oh, so that's Granny there, you can tell.
That's Ivy. It may even have been a christening photo.
It was 1915.
Yes.
So it looks like John wouldn't have been around for the birth of his baby, already in France, I guess, or fighting abroad.
And this one is a picture of the baby who was in that photo.
Love to Daddy, hoping you soon get better. So at this point, seems like already something terrible's happened to John, and he's... Do you like me, Daddy? A big kiss, one for you. That's very, very touching, isn't it?
It is touching.
Do you like me, Daddy?
I know, yeah.
As in, you don't know me, but do
But
you like me
wonder
just
whether
from this
he
picture?
actually ever saw him properly when he was young. I don't know.
It's very sad to think he would be apart from his family for so long.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like to be apart from my son for any amount of time whatsoever, so maybe not even to have met your child while you're fighting abroad, it's unthinkable.
I do remember your dad telling me that his grandfather was in a place called Cane Hill, which was an isolation hospital or a asylum.
Did he spend all his life in there?
I don't know. Do you remember seeing this?
I do.
This, I believe, was done by your great-grandfather.
He was in the Grenadier Guards then, wasn't he? That's a kind of like a special regiment to be in, right?
Well, I think so. I mean,
Has a big reputation.
well, the Grenadier Guards are the ones that guard the palace, don't they? And they do, when they do trooping of the colour and things like that, I think that's the Grenadier Guards.
David's starting with his father's side of the family. To find out more about his great-grandfather, John George Borman, he's come to Wellington Barracks in central London, home of the Grenadier Guards.
My mum was right. The Grenadier Guards are involved in the changing of the guard. Jeremy.
David's meeting military historian Jeremy Banning.
So, where are we?
Well, we're here at the Guards Chapel.
I don't go into churches much. You know, have you ever seen The Omen when they try and get that boy inside the church?
It won't be like that, trust me. We'll be right. Let me show you.
Let's have a look. So I found out that my great-grandfather, John George Borman, was in the Grenadier Guards in the First World War. Here he is. I believe he got shell-shocked and then spent some time in an institution.
Well, what I've dug out here is his service record, and I've got the first page here. You can see this is when he enlisted.
Wow. Name, John George Borman. Grenadier Guards. Labourer.
And the key thing as well is the date down here at the bottom.
30th of September 1914.
Britain had only declared war on Germany on the 4th of August 1914, so it's within 8 weeks or so of the start of war.
Why do you think John enlisted so early?
He probably did so because at that time the country was in the midst of something we've never had before or since, this massive call to arms, men choosing to join the army.
Why would he have joined the Grenadier Guards and not a different regiment?
If I show you here, we have the next page.
OK, 32, 5'9", 140 pounds. Yeah. Girth when fully expanded. My goodness me, 36 inches. Complexion, what does it say?
Fresh.
Fresh complexion.
The bit that jumps out to me there is his height. 5'9".
That's tall for the time, isn't it?
For the time, yeah, very much so. Probably about 4 inches taller than the average. And the Guards tended to take bigger, strapping men.
Do you think I would be right material for the Grenadier Guards?
I think it would be perfect. Certainly the right height.
Thank you very much.
And the Grenadiers are the senior Guards regiment. So
this is very prestigious.
Yeah, very much so, yeah. You know, bearing in mind he's a labourer, he's done pretty well for himself. I'm sure he would have felt intense pride, a bit of cachet in serving in the 1st Battalion of the Grenadier Guards. Can you just about make that out? It's very faint.
Oh, yes. Expeditionary Force France.
That's right.
16th of the 3rd, 15th to 8th of the 6th, 15th.
That's right, 85 days. In that period, that is his first time, obviously, over in France.
By the time David's great-grandfather arrived in France in spring 1915, the British Army had suffered horrific casualties as they desperately fought to halt the German advance. The fighting had frozen into deadlock, with both sides dug into trenches, facing one another across no man's land. Thousands of newly trained British volunteers were sent to man the trenches, including David's great-grandfather.
Your great-grandfather's there a couple of months before an action in May of 1915. It's called the Battle of Festubert. And what we have here is a diary extract from a man called Private Tweed, who served in your great-grandfather's battalion as well. And his experience of Festubert would have been very similar to what your great-grandfather went through.
It was my first experience of heavy, continuous shell and machine gun fire. It was hell let loose 1,000 times. Scores of Scots guardsmen who had preceded us lay killed and wounded, and as we approached the German lines, our casualties were increasing. Heaven only knows how I got through. Just unimaginable terror.
That is it's the ultimate baptism of fire. The regimental war diary describes killing the enemy, bombing down trenches, that's throwing grenades down trenches as well, taking of prisoners as well.
So you're a labourer one day, and then 6 months later you are trying to kill someone in a muddy hole, perhaps, with your bayonet, with your fists, strangling them, whatever. I mean, it's just terrifying.
The Festubert is in May of 1915.
He then goes back home on the 8th of June, 1915. So he's then home for, actually a whole year.
Yeah.
So why would that be?
Well, there's nothing in the records that actually indicate why that is.
We have a postcard, which is from his family saying, "Daddy, I hope you get better." Which makes me think in that time, perhaps he was injured.
It's certainly possible. The key thing is that then he goes back over to France.
28th of August, 1916.
Yeah.
Actually, for then for the best part of a year.
And what was happening in the summer of 1916? The British were fighting the battle that most people...
Battle of the Somme.
The Battle of the Somme, exactly. The Somme makes everything that had gone before, certainly at Festubert, look like a sort of walk in the park, really. This is what the battlefield would have looked like after one of the battles that your great-grandfather John was involved in.
This would have been a forest or something.
This would have been, yes. I mean, if you look closely there, can you see?
Dead bodies.
Dead bodies. And it's exactly this sort of terrain that your great-grandfather would have seen and advanced through.
And this is just sort of ravaged by bombs, basically.
Yeah, by shell fire.
Oh, it is like, I don't know if you want to imagine what hell looked like, it looks like this.
And then, after this, another name comes to the fore as well. As we look into 1917, his battalion, the 1st Grenadier Guards, start to move up to Ypres in Belgium. Now, any soldier who knew that they were moving to Ypres would have thought, oh, here we go. And in July of 1917, they move up towards Ypres for the next bit of action.